In a small village surrounded by thick forest, there lived a young girl named Ada. She was an orphan, and the villagers believed she brought back luck. Every time something went wrong, whether a storm damaged crops or a sickness spread, they blamed her. Fear and superstitions clouding their hearts, and they started to believe Ada was cursed. After a terrible storm one night destroyed homes, the villagers had enough. They gathered together and forced Ada to leave the village, telling her she wasn't welcome anymore. Tears ran down Ada's face as she packed her few belongings into a small bag. She had nowhere to go, and the villagers' harsh words echoed in her mind as she wandered into the dark forest. She shivered, unsure of where to lay head. Just the shadows seemed to grow taller and more threatening. Ada spotted a small light frequently in the darkness. Desperate for help, she followed the light and found a tiny cottage hidden deep in the woods. An elderly woman stood at the door, watching her approach. "Who are you, child?" the woman asked softly. The old woman, who introduced herself as Ine, invited Ada into her cottage. It was warm inside, and the smell of herbs filled the air. Ada explained what had happened in the village, and Ine listened patiently, her kind eyes filled with understanding. "You can stay here, child," Ine said, "but you must learn the way of healing if you wish to live with me." Ada was relieved to have found a place where she was welcome, and she eagerly agreed to learn. The next morning, Ine began teaching Ada the art of healing. They walked through the forest collecting herbs and plants, as Ine explained which one could cure illness and which one soothed wounds. Ada was fascinated. She had never known that the plants around her hid so much power. Day after day she walked alongside Ine, mixing medicine, wrapping bandages, and helping animals that came to the cottage for help. For the first time in her life, Ada felt useful, and she was grateful for Ine's kindness and patience. Weeks passed and Ada's skills grew. She became skilled in identifying herbs and creating remedies. Ine was proud of her, and soon Ada began to feel confident in her ability. But deep in her heart, Ada still thought of the village. Would they ever accept her? Could they see her as someone who wanted to help rather as a cause? Ines seemed to sense Ada's worry. "The village needs you, even if they don't know it yet," Ines told her one evening. "One day you may find your way back to them." That day came sooner than Ada expected. A serious illness had spread through the village, leaving many villagers weak and coughing. No one knew how to treat it. One evening a villager came to the edge of the forest, desperate for help. He had heard of inner healing power and begged her to save his family. Ine listened and then handed the man a jug of medicine. "Take this," she said, "and tell them Ada prepared it." The man insisted but took the medicine and hurried back to the village. Ada's heart raced as she prepared more medicine with Ine, wondering how the village would react. The next morning, news arrived that the medicine had worked. The sick had begun to recover, and soon more villagers came to the forest seeking help. Ada was nervous, but Ine encouraged her. "You have been trained for this moment," she said. "Now go and eat them." Ada stepped forward, carrying jug of medicine back to the village for the first time since she had been cast out. The villagers were surprised to see her. Some still looked at her with suspicion, but others, especially the mothers of the sick children, were grateful. Ada worked day and night preparing remedies and helping the sick recover. Slowly, the village began to see her in a new light. She was no longer the orphan they feared, but someone who had the power to heal. Little by little, their attitude softened and Ada began to feel hope for the first time in years. As the sickness faded away and the health of the villagers grew, Ada became a familiar figure in the village. People no longer avoid her, some even thank her, and others began to ask for her help with small elements and medicine. Ada couldn't believe how much things had changed in such a short time. The fear that had once surrounded her was slowly fading. One afternoon, the village chief approached her. He had been the one who ordered her to leave the village years ago. "Ada," the chief said solemnly, "I see now that we were wrong. You are not cursed. You have saved many lives here. I ask for your forgiveness, and I hope you will stay with us as our healer." Ada looked at the chief, her heart pounding. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, but hearing this word out loud was overwhelming. After a moment of silence, she nodded. "I forgive you," she said softly. "I only ever wanted to help." With the village chief's word, Ada's life changed forever. She was no longer the outcast orphan wandering in the forest. She was a healer, and the village had finally accepted her. Ada continued to work, helping the villagers with their illness and problems, and her bond with Ine remained strong. The villagers, once blind by fear, now respected her and relied on her wisdom. One evening, as Ada sat outside Ine's cottage watching the sunset, she felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been hard, but she had found her place. The fear and loneliness she once felt had been replaced by love and belonging. Ada realized that sometimes the hardest train the hardest trials lead to the greatest reward. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Ada smiled, knowing she had finally come home. From henceforth, Ada began to live in peace and harmony.